On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area and Spokane City Cable 5, welcome to our 2019 Primary Election Candidate Forum, featuring candidates for City Council, District 1, Position 1. I am Ann Murphy, your moderator, and Molly Hannon of the League is our timer. Election Day for 2019 primary is Tuesday, August 6, 2019. This is a top 2 primary in which the 2 highest vote getters will advance to the general election in November. In this forum, the candidates will have an opportunity to present themselves to the voters, and the voters will have an opportunity to learn more about each candidate, helping them make an informed decision when they cast their ballots. The questions I will be asking the candidates have been formulated by the League's Voter Service Committee. Candidates are seated in alphabetical order, and the first speaker will rotate with each question. Candidates will have up to 1 minute to answer the initial question, and then up to 90 seconds for subsequent questions, with additional time for any rebuttal or follow-up questions as we deem appropriate. Each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement. I will ask as many questions as time allows. Our timer will hold up a yellow card when the speaker has 15 seconds remaining, and a red card will indicate that your time is up. Now, before we proceed, a reminder about voting in the primary. You must be registered in order to vote. You can register online by July 29, 2019, up to 8 days prior to the election day. Any mail-in or paper forms must be received in the elections office by July 29th. And new this year, effective June 30th, is our same-day registration program. So during the 8 days prior to the election day, there will be 2 places where you can register in person: at the Spokane County Elections Office on Gardner Avenue and at Center Place in Spokane Valley. Hours there are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4 p.m., and then on Election Day, they will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. to do same-day registration, and then when you register in that process, you will be provided a ballot for voting at that time. Other voter registration changes that are effective this summer are automatic voter registration when eligible citizens interact with state agencies, and pre-registration that allows 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote, so that then when they turn 18, they will be registered. Registered voters will receive their mail-in ballots about 3 weeks before Election Day. Then those ballots must be postmarked or deposited in our conveniently located ballot boxes around the county no later than 8 p.m. on Election Day, August 6th. Ballots can be dropped off on Election Day at one of the voter service centers. For locations of ballot boxes and voter service centers, or other questions about casting your ballot, contact the Spokane County Elections Office, www.spokanecounty.org/elections. Contact information for candidates as well as a voter's guide can also be found on the website of the Elections Office. Additional information about candidates can be found on the League of Women Voters online voter guide, .411.org. Now we will meet the candidates for City Council District 1, Position 1. This is a nonpartisan race, and only the voters in the City of Spokane Council District 1 will select 2 of these candidates to advance to the general election. That district is generally considered to be the northeast portion of the city, generally north of I-90 and east of Division. So joining us today are Tim Benn, Chris Brown, Michael Cathcart, Doral Haynes, Louis Lefevre, Doug Salter, Namama Shirazi. I'm so sorry. So candidates, we will start with your opening question. Why are you running for City Council, and what makes you the best candidate? And we'll start with you, Mr. Benn.
Yeah, thank you for League of Women Voters for putting this on. Yeah, my name is Tim Ben. I'm running for City Council District 1. My wife and I have run a child care business in the district for 2 decades. We've worked with a lot of families that would like to see improvements in public safety and infrastructure. District 1 has the most amount of dilapidated and dirt roads, and I would appreciate the support of the voters since I've been talking to you for so long.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown.
Hi, my name is Chris Brown. I have been a local Spokaneite and in the Spokane area pretty much since I was 7 years old, with a minor 6-month gap when I lived in Seaside, Oregon, and then I just moved back. I can't stay away from Spokane. And I work with the homeless. I work with the marginalized of the city. I work with refugees. I work with the people that the city likes to forget about. We call them problems. We want to eradicate the problem. And at the heart of all of the problems of the city, we have people. We have people that need help, and we've somehow forgotten our compassion towards people. We need to remember that we have people, not problems. And if we can restore their humanity and our compassion, we can work to help these problems.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, first of all, thank you to the League for hosting this important debate. My name is Michael Cathcart, and I'm running for Spokane City Council because I know there's a better way. As I've been knocking on doors, our message of a safe, vibrant, thriving city is resonating unlike anything we could have imagined. People are hungry for a different direction for our community. The crime and drug addiction rampant on our streets cannot continue. We need to be compassionate towards those deserving of a helping hand, but I promise I am the one candidate up here who will not compromise our right to live in a safe community. Northeast Spokane is where I own my home and where I plan to raise my family. I've been blessed to have a number of experiences throughout my career, from advocating for growth and smarter housing policies to working in the Washington State Senate. I want to serve to make Spokane a safe and thriving city. I would appreciate your support and vote for our positive vision of what Spokane can be.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. As you said, my name is Darrell Haynes, and I want to be the next city council person because I care about Spokane and I care about the people that live in it. Simple as that. I want to build up the community that I call my home and represent the district in which I live. Since moving to Spokane, I made it my mission to serve the people in this community, and I have real relationships and connections to the people here. I decided to run for city council because in my 2 years as vice president of the school board for Spokane Public Schools, I have seen the types of challenges that we face as a community throughout the children that we serve within our schools. Out of all the candidates here tonight, I have the most diverse background of experiences. I served 7 years in the Air Force. I chose to stay here in Spokane instead of continuing my military career. I ran for school board in 2015, and I've served for the last 4 years. I also own my own small business that is located within District 1, and I do work at Excelsior Wellness Center with homeless youth that battle with drug addiction issues and mental health issues as well.
Okay, thank you. And we go to Mr. LaFever.
Hello, my name is Louis LaFever. I know firsthand the hardships that this district faces. Currently, I'm a dispatcher at the fire department. Before that, I worked at 911 and Crime Check. So I've heard thousands of 911 calls from people when they're going through their toughest times in their lives. Despite hearing all that, my wife and I still live in the area. We still do everything we can, and we have a great sense of pride in our community. Be it seeing the neighbor kids grow up or, watching friends or family buy their first houses in the neighborhood as well. Recently, our areas have been hit with hardships. My wife was among the teachers laid off at Rogers, and this is my last week at the fire department. I was one of the ones that are getting laid off with a council decision last night. And with all that, I just want to continue the hard work and dedication to the area through public service.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salter.
Hi, I've been out of this for quite a while, but I decided to run because of our roads in this city are terrible, crime. I just recently got with the neighborhood council. I spent 13 years in the military, National Guard here in Spokane. The homeless, I have been out with the homeless talking to them in our parks, and it's amazing. You stop and talk to them, and it's amazing listening to them. I own my own home in Chief Gary. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shirazi.
Hi, my name is Nagmana Shirazi. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and I appreciate all of you because you are just amazing people, everyone with this amazing, fabulous background. Well, I'm running because I am a single working mother who also happens to be from a minority ethnic and religious background. And I feel that Spokane City Council's makeup currently severely is underrepresented for people like me or by people like me. And I want to be the voice of the people so that I can come out and tell exactly what my experiences are and when we talk about things that affect people from my ethnic and religious background. I want to make sure that none of the constituents feel the way that I have been feeling. I have done a lot of advocacy work in Spokane since I moved here about 8 years ago. I was born and raised in Karachi, Pakistan, so I know exactly how it is to live in a third world country. And this is so much better for so many different reasons, but we have our own set of issues in our district.
Hey, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
will give you a chance to talk more.
Thank you.
All right, because we are going to move to a question that
Appreciate it.
we will focus on your district, and then I want to follow that up with a question that will relate how that balances with the city as a whole. So, starting with Ms. Brown, what do you see are the most important issues in your district, and how would you address them? 90 seconds for this one.
I think currently in our district, the most important issue is public safety. I live in a very busy area in our district, right by Division and right by the Northtown Mall, and there are people walking past where I live constantly, all the time, and I work graveyards, so I'm out in the middle of the night, and there are times where I will pretend to be on my phone because I just don't feel safe walking to my car. And I rarely, if ever, see police patrol in my block, on my neighborhood at all during those times of night, during the time of night. And so I think that an increase in public safety is definitely something that we need to look at in our district.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart.
So 2 days ago, I knocked on a door of a gal named Patricia, and she shared with me that Saturday night, she was home, and a gentleman came to her door, made up an excuse and a story, and was trying to get into her home. And when she refused, he got aggressive and very much tried to push her aside to get in. She managed to keep him out, but he fled next door and robbed her 90-year-old neighbor instead. These are the issues that I want to focus on. I want to make sure that our community is safe and that folks that need to be in jail are in jail. Folks that need help, the homeless, the addicted, are getting the assistance that they need. We need to focus on these issues. We need to pay a lot more attention to them, and we have to stop making excuses as to why we need to sort of allow this to occur or just simply manage the problem. I think we have to really dive in and take a harder look. I think the streets, I hear constantly about the streets, especially the residential streets. You know, we've got a great 6-year plan for our arterials, and that's wonderful, but we don't have a great plan for our residential streets. And so I really want to focus on fixing those. There are potholes constantly everywhere. And what often happens is they come out, they fill one pothole, but they leave the 4 or 5 that are very visible sitting right around. And we need to be smarter about how we treat those issues. Housing is another issue, and I know we're going to get to that as well. But we have to be way smarter on our housing policies if we are going to successfully end the housing shortage.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haynes.
Yes, ma'am. So everyone knows across the city of Spokane that we are dealing with issues with unpaved streets. But more specifically to District 1, we have 2 of the most high poverty zip codes in the state of Washington at 99202 and 99207. With that and high poverty rates comes a host of issues from decrease in educational outcomes to a lack of employment opportunities, housing, high poverty issues bring along crime rates as well. And from doorbelling, like Mr. Cathcart said, we've heard from a lot of citizens that property crime is a major, major issue in the district. But we also have beautiful opportunities in District 1. We have the Public Development Authority in the northeast section of Spokane that we could use to leverage a lot of positive outcomes within District 1, from employment opportunities to moving up the priority of some of the streets in District 1 on the city's priority list to get some of those streets fixed first in order to recruit a lot of businesses to the area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFever.
So first off, I believe the first issue would be the schools. District 1 was hit unequally with teacher layoffs, be it the Rogers, the Shaws, the Willards. And this is not a good start for the kids of our community. So I think, come the first of the year when this office would come in, would be a quick focus on the schools to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a city for them and for those families. Next is housing. Housing is often built in the middle of the summer, but if we start focusing on it in the wintertime, then we can get the zoning laws and other ideas put in place so that when the building season starts to happen, that will already be in effect and we can get moving quickly. Next would be a reevaluation of the criminal justice system. Currently, I'm already involved in the fire and police side, and we need to focus partnering more with the current agencies that we assist with, be it mental health, going on ride-alongs with the units to try to address what's happening firsthand while it's occurring in the streets.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salter.
Yeah, our roads are terrible in District 1. I live on one of the, a dirt road that's 100 years old, and they just fixed it about 2 weeks ago for us. It's an unmaintained road, but they fixed it anyways. Crime is something else. I hear it all the time. I'm on that Nextdoor website, and I get a lot of emails and stuff from people in the neighborhood, actually all up and down District 1. And the police department, as far as I'm concerned, they're doing a good job. I mean, I call them, they show up. You call Crime Check, they show up within an hour. We had an incident at the park here about a week ago, and they were serving a search warrant, and I stopped and asked them if when they got done there, if they could come up to the park, and they came up in force and helped me out, helped the neighbors out. And as far as the homeless goes, like I said, I've talked to them, and I've talked to quite a few of them, and a lot of good stories have come out. Some of them are sitting in the parks waiting for apartments, housing. So there's a lot of good stories coming out of there.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shirazi.
So my priority would be the housing, the affordable housing situation that we have here in Spokane right now. I'm one of those people who's affected most by it. I've lived in the same duplex that when I arrived here 8 years ago, and I've been trying to get out of there. Not to say that my landlord isn't fabulous, he really is. They've worked with me in every which way possible. But there are a lot of factors contributing to the homelessness, and the affordable housing issue is one definitely that is contributing the most to it. We have less than 1% rental properties available. Anything that I want to rent out, my rent's going up, I need to move out. This is what I'm hearing when I'm door knocking every single day. And there are older people who live on fixed income, and they just don't have the means to be able to do anything more than go with what's being offered or move into a smaller place. The second thing that I would be working on that's important to me is our homeless situation. And I firmly believe, I worked at the opioid treatment program at the Spokane Regional Health District for 3.5 years. So I have worked with this demographic of people who are not there, and not everybody on the street is homeless and there because they made bad choices in life, because they have mental health issues, or because they have addiction abuse issues. People like me, I live one missed paycheck away from being homeless. People like me are there, and this is really, really important that we do something, bring in resources to make the whole area more viable. And so that's another way of bringing down property crime. So that's my third priority. And of course, making the situation more viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ben.
As a neighborhood council chair and someone active in District 1 in many areas, the number one thing I hear about is definitely the roads and property crime. I think the drug problem, and many of my neighbors and people I speak with think that the drug problem is the property crime problem. They're intertwined. We need enforcement. And the city is saying now that our property crime rate is dropping. But I have to tell you, from what I'm hearing in the neighborhoods and from citizens, is that unless there's a insurance claim being reported, they don't report the crime. And I know Crime Check would like to keep track of that data. Law enforcement would like to keep track of the hot spots so they can increase enforcement. So I think property crime is going to be a huge piece of what we need to focus on over the next couple of years. And I also think that the roads, everybody complains about the roads. We've passed bonds and we've paid extra tab fees, and it's time that we get better roads.
Okay, thank you. So many of you have brought up the affordable housing, accessible housing. So let's dive into it a little bit more. We will start with you, Mr. Haynes. And so what steps specifically would you support to increase the amount of affordable and accessible housing in your district, especially with regard to infill and zoning decisions? And we'll do 90 seconds on this one.
Okay, so like I previously stated before with the Public Development Authority in Northeast Spokane, there's a lot of industrialized and commercialized zoned land. So if we could create policies that would turn some of that industrial and commercially zoned land into housing development possibilities, that could provide big outcomes for our community. We also have opportunities to build on designated centers and corridors, multifamily units, and if we can find ways at the city level to incent property developers to provide income-based housing, at least a percentage of the properties that they develop, make them income-based housing, that can also provide a lot of space and opportunity for people in our district.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFever?
Currently, there are many families in our area that dream of owning a home. And luckily in District 1, our area is built on single-family residences. Currently, I believe if you change up some of the zoning laws, like which was recently done on the South Hill, where they changed up Crestline, that's an easy way to adjust one road to develop a whole new community. That didn't necessarily cost a lot of money. It was just a quick change in a zoning type law. From there, condo restrictions, I believe if we allowed for different types of housing, be it increasing the number of houses on a lot size. There's another idea where it doesn't necessarily cost the city any money. It's just a change in practice that would be able to promote more building and then more home ownership for the families in our area. And then from there, I think of a lot of it has to do with, we have those open lands as well. Currently if you drive up Nevada or over on Magnesium, you can see that we have rooms for growth. And I think if we partnered with the engineers in town and the city planners, we can develop ideas for how best to go about doing this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salter?
I'm in total agreement. Zoning has to change, and there are a lot of empty land up north, and there's really no reason for it to have that, and there is no reason to have a shortage of housing. In my neighborhood right now, every vacant lot has a house on it, and it's actually, I like it, but I don't because I like my peace and quiet. But I have to just deal with it and move on. But yeah, the zoning has to change, and there is a lot of land up north that we could be working on. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shirazi?
So affordable housing is something that we need to be working on it right away. We can't afford to just procrastinate about it, and it should have been taken care of about 20 years ago. We shouldn't be in this situation. We're looking at a lot of development that needs to be thought about. We need to be doing something right away. My idea is to bring in the private and the public sector together, because when you talk about developers building homes, say in the Kendall Yards area, for instance, those are $3,000 apartments. I can't afford to rent one of those, definitely not. And a lot of other people can't. So what we need to do is create a situation where we have a mixture of mix of different types of housing available, maybe give tax incentives, tax breaks that go into the long term rather than just do a short-term plan. And definitely hold people accountable and make sure that they're building up to code and standards so that whatever we do end up offering to anybody, they're house proud about it and take care of it. Another thing, of course, is that our system of gentrification, we need to get away from that so that people are actually, we create that density so that we can have that mix of types of people, and it gets taken care of that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bed?
In the housing market, we're suffering from a lack of supply, and there's a lot of demand. And so it's driving up the cost. And I think to make housing more affordable, what we need to look at is the empty lots around the city that have either not been developed, or maybe there was a house on there at one point in time, and incentivize small contractors. We have lots of incentive for the larger developers, but I think we need to incentivize the small contractors so that they can fill in some of those lots with a multitude of style housing, whether it's cottage housing, apartments, duplexes, or single family. And we got to reduce the cost of government in building a house. Roughly 30% of the cost of building a house is governmental fees and costs. And if we can incentivize the building, those structures will then bring in tax revenue.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
So I recently met with the Spokane builders, and I learned a lot about developing a house that I didn't originally know, and I used to work for an architecture firm. And it costs a lot to build a house and develop a house. And I think that if we really look at the entire process and restructure and reframe the zoning laws, the permit laws, we can incentivize developers to come in. But the other side of that coin is we need to have tight regulations on what they're doing. I've been inside Section 8 housing. I've been inside low-income housing. It is quickly put together and not put together well. The landlords do not come in and fix things according to Washington state laws like they're supposed to. If we're going to put in affordable housing to help solve the homelessness problem, then we need to make sure we're giving them homes that they can actually live in and not just shacks that we put up and painted a bright color. We need to make sure that these are actual homes that they can live in and that they can have a home to go home to so that they can get a job and that they can actually feel cared for. The other thing that I think we need to do that no one likes to talk about is rent control. Nobody likes to bring it up, nobody likes to talk about it, but it needs to happen. And it needs to be modified. Everyone thinks that it's just a blanket statement, okay, we're gonna cap rent at $800, but we need to modify it so that people are still profiting, but people can still afford a home.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart?
You know, I'm a fierce advocate for housing, and I think you could ask any of the current council members how much I've bugged them over the years on these issues. There are some simple things that we can do right away. We can cut fees, we can reduce permit times, but really it does come down to being smart about our zoning and our density. We need to make sure that we're increasing our density around our commercial centers and corridors. That's really not happening right now, and we need to look at that. I'm a big advocate for a small lot ordinance and for eliminating or reducing the lot dimensional standards in many of our neighborhoods in certain parts of our city so we can maximize the footprint of what we are developing. I think what we need to, and in fact, one of the things I'm going to ask if I do happen to win this election is I'm going to ask to be appointed to the Growth Management Steering Committee, and what that is a regional committee that determines a lot of these growth issues, and I want to see them finally pursue and implement a buildable and available lands analysis so that we know exactly how much land is available. This is really important and an issue I have been advocating for years, and it is yet to occur. So that is a big one. And the other thing I would do on that committee is support and push for a responsible growth of the urban growth boundary. We can do this responsibly and carefully so that we're not allowing sprawl to occur, but so that we are allowing some land to come back into that boundary that can be built and developed less expensively, and that's really important. We need to build smaller, allow smaller homes to be built so that people can afford their homes.
Okay, thank you. So now we've heard some of the issues within your district. We want to look a little larger in terms of the city itself. Climate disruption is already having direct impacts on the Spokane area. What steps by the city would you support to mitigate these impacts on our community and to reduce the city's contribution to further climate disruption? And we'll start with Mr. Lefevre. And 60 seconds.
60 seconds, okay. So I think currently city is doing a very good job with promoting alternative resource vehicles, be it the trash trucks or the city buses. I think that's a positive, and that's something that's going to continue to help the city as well. From there, with the recent idea of the canopy, I like that idea in the aspect of what can we do as a city to help promote business with the clean energy. Recently, there's the proposal of the car manufacturer to come into town, and I think if we partner more with the schools and the numerous colleges in the area to promote the sciences and technologies in those specific areas, we can use that to help make our workforce more employable, and then that will create more jobs in this area dedicated to those fields.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salter?
I'm at loss here. I'm totally in agreement, totally in agreement. So I have nothing on it.
So nothing,
Yep.
nothing to add. Okay, thank you. Ms. Shirazi?
I think we are very lucky to be living in a state that is leading the nation on transitioning into green energy. We will be passing this world on to our children and our grandchildren, and I want to hand it over in the best state possible, and that means going to green energy. As a scientist, it really makes me proud to be able to see that we are working on these things on our way to do these wonderful things. One of the things that Spokane is very serious about is transitioning into the green transport and going fossil fuel free in the next 30 years. And that, I think, is something that definitely we need to look forward to and work towards it. Banning single-use plastics, for instance, things like that, recycle as much as possible. The green canopy, agreed, that 30% addition would be just the use of carbon dioxide being taken up away from us is awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ben?
Yeah, I think that one of the major air quality issues that we've faced here in the city of Spokane actually blows in. It's not originating from here, and that's the forest fires. And I think we need to look at and talk to our state partners on how we're managing our forests, because it's getting to the point where every year now, it's a new phenomenon that we are seeing massive blankets of smoke coming into the city, whereas when I grew up in this city, that was not the case. I think our management practices have changed dramatically. As a city, I think the most important thing we can do is stop the backup of traffic. Let's get traffic flowing and not uselessly emitting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
So going green is a huge deal to me. I've actually made a personal pledge to go as plastic-free as possible by 2021. It's actually been way more difficult than I thought it was going to be when I set out on this venture. But even just the small things have a great impact, and even the recycling bins you see all over the city increasing in number make me incredibly happy, because a huge number of people are like, yeah, I'd recycle if I had access to it. And now you're having access to it. But I think that more so than having access to recycling is knowing how and when to recycle, and education around that needs to happen. The green canopy, I had actually not heard it until someone, when I was knocking on their door, brought it up. And I had to research it myself. I should have access to that information, especially in today's social media age. We need to increase knowledge around these sort of things if we want the support of the citizens.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart?
You know, Washington State's already one of the greenest in the country, and anything that we do at the local level here in the city of Spokane is not going to change what's happening nationally or in China or in India. But what it can do is it can make our competitiveness, put our competitiveness at risk. And so we have to be very careful with any sort of regulations or taxes that we implement. I am not going to support any policies that put local jobs at risk. Hilliard, which is in our district, is already the poorest neighborhood in the state of Washington, and to put their jobs at risk would just be irresponsible. So I will not support that. I do support incentives. I think we have to be good stewards of our environment. We need to do everything we can from that regard, but as a city, our policies should be to grow jobs and increase wages for those workers and not put those at risk.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Durrell? Or Haynes. Durrell.
That's okay. But first, we have to admit that climate disruption is a thing, and I do, right? And we also, second, we have to admit that the impacts on climate change have the largest impacts on high poverty residents, which are the majority of the residents within our district, who can't afford air conditions, who can't afford to escape the heat and smoke during the summer times, right? So supporting different ordinances and bills that our current administration has already decided to pass, as was previously mentioned, the going 100% fossil fuel free by 2030. Another council member is currently working on an urban forestry ordinance that would update our tree canopy to 30% by 2030 also, and it's currently at 23%. And doing things like that, and also being strategic about public transportation, that can go a long way towards improving our climate also.
Okay, thank you. And because it was another question we had here, and several of you brought it up, I want to just find out very quickly, like with a 15-second answer, how many in your district do you think support the green canopy ordinance that was just passed? So just a really quick answer. Mr. LaFever, we'll do the same
Yeah.
rotation.
After going around and talking to people, a lot of people don't know about it.
Don't know about it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. It's not being discussed in our area.
Okay, Mr. Salter.
Yeah, the same here. There's a lot of people that don't know it.
Okay, Ms. Shirazi.
I'm hearing more about crime and property disruption, homelessness and housing than compared to the green canopy. I think it might come up if we talk about it more.
Okay, Mr. Ben.
I think if it was brought up, people would support something of that nature. I definitely see the city moving in the other direction where they are incentivizing and we're paying tax dollars for people to have gravel yards and drought-resistant plants when we want to encourage the growth of trees. So I think we need to make sure our policies line up with what the people would desire, and I think they would like to see a greener city.
Okay, Ms. Brown.
I've had one person bring it up, so I know at least one person supports it.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, I haven't had anybody bring it up to me, but I would say, you know, we can beautify this city and we can be more effective with the green canopy policies. In fact, one policy that I really support and I think is a great one, and it's being promoted right now by Larry Stone and Mike Peterson, the Lands Council, and that's the Spokane Ponderosa push, which I think makes a lot of sense. Basically, for the cost of a rounding error, we can beautify most of our projects, the street projects that we are working on right now.
Okay,
and
but
that's
are you
really
hearing it from
important.
the people in your district is what I'm after here?
No.
Okay. Mr. Haynes, sorry.
Very similar to the rest of the candidates. No, you're not hearing it from the people in the district, but I have taken it upon myself to bring it up and discuss the research that students at North Carolina State University have done in regards to green canopy and the positive effects that it can have, especially on often marginalized communities, and people in the community have been in complete favor and support of it.
Okay, great, thank you. So let's take another look at what's perhaps a district issue as well as a citywide issue and how you balance what goes on there. Last winter, our city struggled to cope with and balance the needs of people who are homeless and business owners and residents. So what are the challenges homelessness presents for your district, and what immediate long-term solutions do you propose that would benefit both your district as well as the city? And we'll start with Mr. Salter. And this is a 60-second question.
Well, the city needs to get more involved, and we definitely need a place for them to go. And I'm all in favor of opening up a 24/7, city-owned shelter. So that's...
Okay. Ms. Shirazi?
Can I have the rest of his time? No, I'm kidding.
No, you get your 60.
So first of all, I do not believe that homelessness is a choice. I think it's an unfortunate situation that people find themselves in for very various reasons. We need more 24-hour shelters available that have caseworkers to help people get the resources that they need, whether it be help getting sober, getting on medication, help getting employment, or simple assistance finding affordable housing. But first, we need more affordable housing. We need more community courts. When people are charged with felonies for petty crimes, it becomes harder to find a job, harder to find housing, and perpetuates the cycle of homelessness. So there are a lot of things that we can do, and these are things that are all interconnected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ben?
Yes, this last winter, our council had forgotten about the homeless apparently and didn't open up any shelters until after winter was in full swing. I think that we can do a better job at contracting and finding resources if we plan ahead, plan in advance for the population that's homeless. I think that also the homeless issue is a drug issue, and we need to get the drugs off the streets. We can send people through rehabilitation over and over, but it is not compassionate to push them back out into the street where the drug dealers and other addicts are. And so I think to address the homeless problem, we have to address all of the underlying issues as well as mental health. Some of the mental health issue is drug-induced, but some of the mental health issue is people that are self-prescribing or not getting their prescriptions. So I think we need to look at the contractors that can focus on those specific issues and find ways to get those services to the people where it's needed, and then have some accountability attached with those services.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
The homeless issue is so complex that everyone wants a simple solution. They want a shelter opened, they want a warming center open, they want to eradicate the drugs. And what they don't realize is that the homeless issue is so much more complicated than putting a Band-Aid on a gaping open wound. You aren't going to hand me a tiny Band-Aid that's meant for a nick on my finger if you can see my bone. And that's what we're trying to do by opening up shelters. You don't understand that it involves the entire community opening up their jobs to teach job skills. We have the #1 mental health system in the country in Spokane. There's no reason why you can't get mental health services, but the problem is the lack of connections. That's the real poverty here. They have a lack of connections, and we need to work as a city to make sure that we can put these together. There are already organizations out there that are doing this. Why are we not partnering with them?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, you know, this issue is really a tough one, and it really breaks my heart when I see these folks that are out there, regardless of the reasons why. And really, it does look like the majority of it is because of mental health issues and drug addiction, and so we have to tackle that. I think there are two things that we really have to do. We have to show some tough love on folks that are unwilling to get treatment. I would support an aggressive implementation of Ricky's Law. I think that that is needed for folks that are addicted and not willing to seek treatment themselves. And the second thing is, I think we need to change our policies to add more accountability and more of an incentive-based system to the process. So any money that we spend, and we spend $21 million every 2 years on this issue, and much more may be spent soon, those dollars should have accountability attached. So when it goes to a nonprofit or to a group or directly to an individual, there needs to be outcomes that are expected. And if those outcomes don't show up, then we need to take that money and invest it somewhere else where we will get those positive outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haynes.
Yes, so simply the answer is collaboration. Some of the most successful things that we've been able to do in Spokane Public Schools came as a result of us being able to collaborate, whether it was with the city of Spokane, nonprofit organizations, or members of our community. I'm currently one of the advisors on the Zone projects, which is located in the Northeast Spokane, and that's something that we are focusing on, is collaborating and tying together community resources, whether it be from the local businesses, the city government, and multiple other nonprofits that are seeking to address this issue as a whole. And if we're able to house people and provide pathways for people to seek treatment or job skills training, or even tracks to apprenticeship programs within our labor market, which is severely searching for people to fill jobs, then we could go a long way towards helping homeless populations.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFever?
So every year at the fire department, I talk to people every winter that have cold exposure and they're starting to get onset of frostbite. So I think warming shelters are needed in this area. We can't expect them to be on the streets all winter long when it's 0 degrees. Last year when the council proposed having City Hall be open for warming, I'm in disagreement of that. I believe that the shelters are in place for that, and we should make sure that our businesses are just that, our businesses for the area. Also, something that I'm not hearing enough people talk about is the homelessness in our communities. I recently talked to an elementary school principal, and he estimated there to be 50 to 60 homeless kids at his school. And this is a school in our area. It's the kids that are doubled up living with their aunts or cousins. And I think there are programs in place that we need to partnership more with to assist those families in our areas.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to move the next question into City Hall here. So, what do you think are the best ways to handle the policy differences between the administrative branch and you as part of the council? And how would you accomplish this? We'll start with you, Ms. Shirazi, and this is a 60-second question.
It's all about building relationships and collaborations. If you do the homework necessary and you do the research necessary and you come up with a plan that works for everybody, it takes care of itself.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ben.
Can you repeat the question? That was a mouthful.
Absolutely. As soon as I can
I
find
want to
it.
make sure I address each point.
Okay, so what do you see as the best way to handle policy differences between our administrative branch or the mayor and you as would be as part of the city council, and how would you accomplish this?
Well, I think we already have a process set up to do that, and I think it's sit down at the table and discuss the issues. We have meetings between council members and the mayor already is how it's done, and I think we have to look at where we want to end up and chart our path together on how to get there so that we don't waste time, waste money. And I think there's a lot of people that agree where we need to go. I think you're going to hear that around City Hall. You're going to hear that from the citizens, and we've heard it today on the stage that property crime and the streets are major issues that we need to work on and focus on. And if we can get a team that's focused on the issues that the citizens care about most, we can succeed.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
I think people often mix up collaboration and compromise, and they're not the same thing. Compromise means someone walks away feeling bad, and collaboration is really working together, and that's what the city council and the mayor should really be doing, is working together. And that's really what I strive to do, is collaborate with people. We're not pitted against each other, regardless of whoever wins the mayoral race, whether I agree with their platform or not. We're meant to work together for the good of the city. That's why we're all running. And so collaboration is meant to support that.
Okay, Mr. Cathcart?
Yeah, you know, I don't think it's an issue if the two sides disagree so much. I mean, you want differing ideas, and I think it's that battle of ideas where you actually get, you know, good policies that come out. Where you fall down is where you have an imbalance. So if you have a mayor and a council that are all in agreement all the time, that's an imbalance, and you're never going to have some differing views that might bring some better policies to the table. So I disagree that it's necessarily a problem, but you know, there should be better communication. I think they can work more collaboratively on issues, especially where there is overlap. But ultimately, there are checks and balances, and that's how our system of government is actually designed intentionally. And so that's the best way forward, is to recognize that and appreciate the way that our government is set up.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haynes?
Yeah, being able to disagree appropriately matters, and there are policies and procedures currently set in place between City Council and the Mayor's office for when those situations do occur, but also building relationships and remembering that everyone at the end of the day is well-intentioned. We may not agree on how we get to the solution, but for the most part, we will all agree on what the outcome is that we're shooting for. And if you can always keep that at heart, then, and don't take it personal, put your ego to the side and always advocate for what's best for the people that you were elected to represent, that'll go a very long way.
Okay, Mr. LaFever?
So communication is not a one-time event. Communication is a back and forth with understandings from each party. Open dialogue needs to continue at all levels and be an ongoing process as well. I think that City Council and the mayoral and also the current administration, while they may not agree on every subject, you need to be talking and fluid with ideas. Recently, when the City Council decided to go against the combined communication system, this was done when they were listening to certain people. The mayor has come out saying he was against that. The fire chief was against that. The police chief was against that, and also the financial officer. So what they're not doing is they're not being open enough to the key players in that. If you have the experts, you should take their opinions as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Salter?
Boy, that's a tough one. And yeah, everybody's hit it right on the head. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, you know, right on the head.
Ditto, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean-
all right. So now we will go into your closing statements, and you will each have 1 minute for that closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Benton.
Thank you again, League of Women Voters, for putting this on. I appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank the rest of the candidates for attending as well. We got a great deal of people that care a lot about the community, so that's encouraging. I've been in the city of Spokane my whole life. I've seen some good changes and some not so good, and I think that we can chart a path forward that brings us into a better future. If we represent the citizens, I see agenda-driven politics getting in the way of good policy and what the citizens really want and what the citizens have continually voted for. So from the Tim Ben campaign, for Ben for Spokane, you're not going to get empty promises. I'm going to work towards exactly those things: public safety and streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us, and I want to thank everyone who's watching this at home and is watching the rebroadcast, and for everyone coming out to hear all of us. Thank you for taking out your time to listen to a bunch of people who are really passionate about their city. It's really great when people get involved in local politics. I really want you to think about and consider everything that everyone up here has said. I don't dislike any of us. We are all really passionate about where we live and what we represent and the people of the city. And the one thing that I want you to take away from me is that I care about you, not just as voters, but as people in the city. And whether you vote for me or you vote for one of them, that's not going to change how I feel about you as people. You are people. You are not problems.
Thank you. Mr. Cathcart.
Yeah, again, thank you to the league, and I have to thank my beautiful girlfriend who's here today watching this. I'm running for Spokane City Council for the Sues who live every day armed because of their dangerous street, for the Denises who are forced to spend thousands on new fencing to protect themselves from neighboring drug houses, for the Mari Cruzes who are not being treated fairly by local government agencies. I'm running for the employers across our district and downtown who daily have to clean up trash and feces left at their doorsteps, for the hardworking people of Hilliard and Logan, Shiloh Hills, Chief Gary, East Central, and all of our neighborhoods in District 1 who deserve more opportunity to rise and to prosper. I will be their voice. I will be your voice. We need to move forward, prioritizing our right to live in a safe community. We have an opportunity to implement our better, more positive vision for Spokane, but I need your help and support to do it. My name is Michael Cathcart, and I'm running for Spokane City Council, and I would truly appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Haynes.
Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum tonight. Thank you to everyone that came out to watch and those at home that are watching as well. Again, my name is Jarrell Haynes. I'm currently running for City Council in District 1 I really want to serve people. My entire life, I've done nothing but serve our community. I spent 7 years in the Air Force. I work with nonprofits. I've worked with homeless youth. I've employed homeless youth and jobless parents. I mentor children that live within our school district. I'm vice president of the school board here at Spokane Public Schools, and I look forward to the opportunity to be able to continue serving the city of Spokane as a city council person. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LaFever.
City council is a representative position. So based on that, we should be asking what the residents are wanting and what they're needing. And that's something, if elected, I will continue to do. I will continue to ask the people of our neighborhoods what they're looking for. Part of that, I believe in the Vision 2020 ideas. We need a safer area, criminal justice, the fire side, stronger, be it economic or a stronger housing market where more people feel comfortable and are able to afford what they're looking for, and also smarter. We need to focus on schools and make sure that District 1 is just as equal as everyone else.
Thank you. Mr. Salter.
I'm the guy that's not going to sleep. When I'm not at City Hall, I'll be out on the streets, asking questions, helping out as much as I can. So with that said, thank you.
Hey, Ms. Shirazi.
So I moved to Spokane about 8 years ago. I'm an immigrant. I chose Spokane. Now that I am here, I've immersed myself in the community, and I am working very, very, very hard, and I have made so many friends. I've made a new community around me. I've built a new community around me, and I'm very grateful for that. This is my way of paying back, making sure that people in my area are thought about and heard. I probably, if I get on City Council, would be the only single working mother. There are a lot of people around me like there in the district, and I want to be that voice. I want to be that representative who is representing people like me. So thank you for that. My name is Nagmana Shirazi, and I'm running for Spokane City Council District 1.
Okay, so again, we have these candidates for District 1, Position 1, Tim Benn, Chris Brown, Michael Cathcart, Jarrell Haynes, Louis LaFever, Doug Salter, and Nagmana Shirazi. Let's thank them all for being here and participating. This concludes our primary election candidate forum for the candidates running for City Council District 1, Position 1. And in case you joined us in the broadcast program after we began, here's a reminder about voting in the primary. You must be registered to vote. There are several ways to do that. Online by July 29th, or make sure that your paper form or mail-in form is in the elections office by July 29th. And new this year, we will have same-day registration, so you can register up to Election Day, but you must do it at the Election Center on Gardner Avenue or at the Spokane Valley Center Place. Both of those sites will be open for the 8 days leading up to the election. Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4. And then on Election Day itself, those sites will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. To take your registration and provide you with a ballot to vote. Also, changes this year in voter registration include automatic voter registration and pre-registration for 16, 17-year-olds. Registered voters will receive their mail-in ballots about 3 weeks prior to Election Day, and those ballots must be postmarked or deposited in the several conveniently located ballot boxes throughout our county by 8 p.m. on Election Day, August 6th. You can find more information about sites at the Spokane County Elections Office, www.spokanecounty.org/elections. Contact information for candidates as well as a voter's guide can also be found on that website, and you can find additional information about candidates on the League of Women Voters online voter guide at www.411.org. The League of Women Voters of the Spokane area is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government, influencing public policy through education and advocacy. We invite you to visit our website at lwvspokane.org for more information. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Spokane area, thank you to all of the candidates for participating in this forum, and thank you to our viewing audience as well as our audience here for your willingness to learn more about the candidates and their issues. We hope this forum has helped you in making an informed decision when you cast your ballot by Tuesday, August 6, 2019. Thank you for joining us.